Hello, everyone. Welcome to this fun little, I would say, rant video, I suppose, where I'm gonna just kind of talk a bit more about this game that I've been really enjoying lately, or actually beat now. Not Neon White, although Neon White is also amazing, but the game specifically mentions you not to, download the gameplay in any way because they want to make sure people are spoiler free when they play it, things like that, and I'm gonna respect that. So, but basically. The game is called RAINCODE, and it came out, I want to say, June. I'm going to struggle a little bit here. I haven't played this game in so long. Let me actually get a new level to begin with, because I'm still rusty. So the game came out. It's by the people who made the Danganronpa series, if you're familiar with it. AI Somnium as well. So detective games, kind of like those like puzzly, like anime-type story beats, things like that. You can hear the music going on as well in the background because I was just like, the music in this game is so good. I have to just like let it live in this video in some way. So hopefully the devs aren't too mad at me for using their music, but it's really good music. It's on YouTube, so like whatever. And the point of the game is you need to basically just solve what's going on in this entire world, figure out what the world has become and things like that. And it's so cool how the story is delivered and the way the characters are written. And so I kind of just wanted to talk a bit more about the game and what it does well, what it fails to do for me. Like, let me also just do one more thing. Right, let me just at a very high level. This will be a spoiler-free review of the game, so I promise I will not spoil the game in any way. In fact, I probably will talk very vaguely on things that you might get upset with how vague I'm talking about it. But genuinely, this game is probably my game of the year, even with Zelda being out this year as well. Just because it really just delivers on a lot. It really, really does. So, okay. To refocus on this game a little bit. So yeah, let's start with the game. So it is not really a game, as I would call it. It's more of like a visual novel type thing that it infringes on the fact that you don't know the story going into it, right? And it is like 100% carried by the storyline, by the characters. It's a story game. It's a story-based game. Like, bar none, it is one of the most story-based games I've ever played, even more than Xenoblade. Just saying a lot because I feel like that game is solely carried on the story mode, but like genuinely, it is just a visual novel. With a few added gameplay elements, I guess. But the game does so well is how it tells that story, how it unravels a sort of like just insane mystery as you go like through the whole story, and like the amount of twists and turns and stereotypes it breaks in the detective genre, things like that. I'm somebody who loves that genre of fiction. It's hands down my favorite, like in terms of battling mysteries and all this sort of thing, right? It's what I will almost always lean to when I choose to pick a book to read for fiction and things like that. And on like the amount of tropes broken by the storyline, the amount of question marks, I guess, that kind of get left, that get solved rather, and the amount of questions that come up that you're like, how is that even a question to begin with? But then it makes sense why it's a question. It's absolutely brilliantly told story. It really, really is. And I'm gonna start, I guess, with just sort of the presentation of the game itself. Is one of the sharpest intros to a game that I have ever experienced. I forget you don't have to hit those. The intro to that game is bar none one of the smartest things I've ever seen in a video game, just in general. Like the bravery, I think, to make the intro what the intro was. It was just kind of insane. It's just kind of insane. Again, I can't get into spoilers, obviously, but it just, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And yeah, the game it's really, it's amazing. I mean, all the characters are so well written. The main character, I think, is especially interesting. I missed one. Because they do have a very stereotypical, like, trainee detective type beat, right? You know, they're the new guy on the block, all this stuff, but I think as you dive into the story a bit more, and as you kind of learn more about the character and what they do and like what they went through and everything, like you learn so much more about them and like what they're about, and it's unraveled in such a cool and interesting way. It really, really, like again, it's just the way the mystery unravels in that story as a whole is simply incredible, simply incredible. And I've never, for me as well, like I've never felt more ingrained or immersed in a world. You know those games where like once you beat it, you're like kind of lost a little bit. You're like, I don't know exactly what I'm gonna do now. Like, what game do I play now? Like, you know, I just beat this game. It was fantastic all the way through. I felt so immersed in the world, and now I'm here, just like, what can I play next that would, you know, kind of grant that same feeling, I guess, or get me out of that feeling of like, hey, I'm, you know, I gotta get out of this, right? And I still don't have the answer yet, honestly. Like, I didn't even know what really to play for this video. I kind of just went back to, like, my roots with Neon White a little bit. Oh, I messed that up, didn't I? I think I did. Yeah, I did. Well, we can still make it, though. Yeah, fine. Okay. But yeah, like, genuinely, like I felt that way with, like, Persona 5. And I'm not saying that the game is as good as Persona 5. Persona 5 is probably one of my favorite games of all time. Either that or Breath of the Wild, like one or the other. And no, not Tears of the Kingdom. No offense to Tears of the Kingdom. I do love that game a lot, but it's not quite for me. It's more on the building side. And I'm not a huge fan of the building aspects of the game, to be honest. They're fine. They're harmless. They're good for people who like that stuff. I don't really care for it, to be honest. I think we make that, yeah. But yeah, I mean, this game made me feel lost after. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do moving forward, what game to play next, things like that. And there's so few games that do that. Like, so few. There really need to be more that do that. But it's tough. It's a tough feeling to elicit. But just the way that the way that the characters just interact with each other, and you know where the story ends up going. It just, like, all of it. It's not only like it's unpredictable, which is like the best thing you can be as a detective story, right? Or mystery story is to have unpredictable mysteries, but when they make sense too. When the answer isn't just crazy wackiness, it also makes sense why it's crazy wackiness. Like, the reasoning behind it makes perfect sense. Everything's crystal clear by the end of it, and it's just like, that is just so amazing. And I think the structure as well is something that I really appreciated a lot, because typically, like in Danganronpa, it's like it's a marathon. I mean, that it is chapter based in Danganronpa, but like it's a marathon, right? With this game, there is a long-term goal, but also the way it's broken up into chapters, they feel like separate stories, like separate mysteries, and yet it still has that cohesive vision at the end of the day. And like it's so impressive the way that the team delivers on that goal. And yeah, it really is just like one of those timeless games for me. I cannot wait for them to potentially do another series or sequel or however they end up doing it, right? Because like it delivers on Danganronpa in a way that I like. Danganronpa for me was fun, but it was like Hunger Games type reality, right? Where it's like, oh, who's gonna die next? You know what I mean? Like, this felt like a true cohesive storyline that just made sense through and through. That's the difference, I think, and it is a massive difference. It's a lot more grounded. It's still not completely grounded. It still has a lot of the anime stuff that, you know, some people don't like, myself included. I'm not a huge fan of it. And you'll know it once you see it, I think. But it's still like really good in that, like, you can kind of look past that stuff and even like fast forward through it a little bit and not really worry about it too much, right? Because this is very like stereotypical anime cringe trope, things like that. Like those exist in the game. Just as a forewarning. I know most people don't really mind that stuff. I don't hate it. Like it's not gonna like ruin the game for me completely, and it didn't obviously in this case. But you know, it's just like if they didn't have that little bit, I would be like, oh okay, I love this game. You know what I mean? Like absolutely love it. I still absolutely love it, but it's a little bit different, right? It's a little bit different. It put a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, just like how fan servicey it got at times, and you know all the little like weird like just decisions, I guess, like the Nickelodeon style, like the equivalent, the Nickelodeon equivalent with feet, like this game did with like other weird like kink things, and I'm not a huge fan of that, right? I just think it's like weird, right? It's not, there's no place for it in this game, especially because it doesn't match that vibe that like Danganronpa try to hit and stuff like that. So that would be my one critique of the game, is it's too fan servicey, and it's kind of like just disturbing at times, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word. I don't know if I'm being a bit prude, probably. But with that said, like it still is like such a great game, and it's something that I could overlook very easily, and was fine with, right? So, and especially me, because I'm a huge critic of that type of stuff. I really, really am. I do not like it. I think it's completely, it ruins anime for me a lot of the times as well. Like that, just like really cringy, like, oh, you got the character who like, you know, hits on the ladies all the time, right? Or you have the character who, you know, is like just meant to be this like busty, attractive person, right? Like I'm just not a huge fan of that type of character writing, because I think it's just easy. Easy is maybe the wrong word, but like it's attention seeking, right? But that aside, right, even those characters still have some really cool developments, which is cool. Like I still like that a lot too. Like it's not just that, you know what I mean? It's also, they're still cool characters, and it doesn't get in the way of the story. I think that's the big thing for me. It's like, yes, it's a fact about those characters, right? Oh shoot. God, sorry, I almost fell. Like it's a fact about those characters, but it's not like the end all be all. Like this is their defining trait. With one maybe, and I'll get to that more in my spoiler one for that character that I really don't like in this game. But with that said, most of the characters are very likable. They all have motives, and all their motives like line up really well, and they make sense. Which I also appreciated a lot, because sometimes characters just like do things just to move plot along, but like genuinely like everything that a character did made sense for the story at large, and like their motive and like what they wanted to do, right? And again, that's also a very important, you know, thing to. Wait, how do I switch weapons? I don't even know. Dead. Yeah. I've played this game forever, if you can tell. But like that's the thing that made sense. Like every character still had a lot of great motives. The characters were still really well written. Excuse me. And that just made the story. You know what I mean? I think there are very rare games that do that, and it has to be done through anime in a lot of ways, because I don't know. It's just like that's like just where like the strongest characters come from, in my opinion. From that like that style of art. Like Persona 5, characters are the highlight of that game. I mean, without the characters in that game, it wouldn't really be doing much for me. You know, but the characters in that game are so strongly written. Even like Joker, who like is somebody who like is just like, you know, very like milquetoast, like meant to be the protagonist. Did I meet that? I guess I did. Interesting. I thought I didn't. Oh, I died anyway. There's some tricky levels like that where if you just don't remember what to do, you just die. You flail. Yeah. And I messed that up. And on the subject of, what was I gonna say? On the subject of gameplay, right? I think this is where the game falls flat the most. The gameplay in the game itself is barely there. It's pretty much QTEs and a few like slight mini games, but you know the QTEs are tied to detective deductions, things like that. So like it's not like all bad. Like it is very much a logic puzzle game. Like how do you get from point A to point B type beat, and it does a good job of delivering on that. It really does. It really does. It's just the biggest issue for me is that it's so sparse. The gameplay is so sparse, and it is literally just visual novel all the way through. And I think going into the game, I was expecting more gameplay, so I was kind of upset at first that it just wasn't a lot of gameplay. Granted, it's still probably better gameplay than like a Danganronpa, where Danganronpa is all about the mystery and like the gameplay itself is so second fiddle. Where like here, at least you're able to move around the map a bit easier. You're able to, what was I gonna say? For the map it easier, you're able to like also like influence some decisions as well. So I mean, there's still gameplay here, and it still works really well. It's just it fails to deliver, I think, as much as I wanted it to when it first got announced. That's my biggest flaw that I've come across with the game, is the actual gameplay itself. If you're going into it to play a game, I'd say you're probably going into it for the wrong reasons. It really is about the story and the mystery and uncovering this world. And speaking of the world, I mean, the world in this game is just absolutely phenomenal. It really is top tier, like one of my favorite like environments, I think, that a game has like truly delivered on. In terms of the world, like it just, the environments are so beautiful and stunning. The way that the characters interact with the world is kind of amazing. You know, it just feels very lived in. I think that's the thing that matters the most. Like, it's a very lived in world. It's a very realized world. It's not rough around the edges. Like, everything in the world makes sense for what the world is trying to deliver. So it's kind of tricky. But it really is just like one of those games where, like, especially when you get to the ending, like, I was kind of worried that the ending, I forgot what that chest there. I was kind of worried the ending would not deliver, and it was kind of like feeling like it wasn't, but then it totally did, and then some, to be honest with you. Like, everything again lined up perfectly. Just when I thought I kind of could assume where it was going, it completely threw me a loop. And again, like, it just like, everything lined up, which is so good when it comes to these sorts of games. Like, you really need everything to line up in mystery games, and it did. It just absolutely did. There was no question about it. So yeah, I mean, I'm just like so impressed with how this dev group is able to deliver on such a great game. Because I love Danganronpa. It's just like, again, it's like, it's very like reality television, which is the problem. Or like Total Drama Island even. But like, it actually like just nails the beats. Like, every step of the way, it nailed the beats, and it showed just how impressive, I guess I could say, these developers really are, and like what they can do, you know, if given the right time and right everything. And I think AI Somnium Files is another game that I absolutely love by Chunsoft, that is just so like strong, delivers so well. How do you switch weapons, by the way? I don't even remember. Is it right? No, it's not right. I don't even know. E? Q? It's Q. It's Q. It's Q. I'm dead. But yeah, like, it just delivers. It was such a pleasant surprise as well, where like I went into it thinking, okay, it's gonna be like very Danganronpa-y, very campy. And it had moments like that where it was very campy, right? But it actually like truly delivered on such a great world, like baked in sci-fi cyberpunk style. Like, everything was just so like perfectly done, perfectly delivered, and again, I'm just so impressed by this dev group for making such a great experience, and like very like reminiscent of like sort of the old school style of games where it's that $60 purchase, right? It's a much slower experience. It's purely single player. Doesn't care about what you want to say. Like, it reminded me a little bit of Telltale games to a certain extent, although not entirely, because it is a bit more linear path. But yeah, it delivered. It delivered, and the story was amazing. It was so perfectly executed from the start of the story, which again, the prologue. Oh my gosh, you have got to play the prologue of that game. It might even be a demo, honestly. If it is, go check it out. If not, you know, don't watch my spoiler free or not spoiler free version of this video, because it'll be a lot more in depth on that prologue and what it delivered. And just play the game, and trust me, just enjoy it. Just enjoy the game. And if you can look past the anime stuff, again, if you're not a huge fan of that fan service-y type of bullshit, like I'm not either. I hate it. I wish that was the one thing. That's the one thing I hate about this game. It would probably be top 5 all time for me. If it didn't have that anime bullshit in it. Honestly, like it is just that good. With that slight exception. So yeah, but anyways, I'm gonna wrap it up there. Again, I'm gonna be doing a spoilered video, I guess, of this game. And again, the spoilers are very important for this game, or not to get spoiled rather. So if you do plan on playing it at any point, definitely do not watch that video and just go buy the game. I cannot give it enough praises. Honestly, the storyline itself, it'll take you for a ride. It'll immerse you in the world really well. It does a great job at it. And the world itself is so beautiful and amazing and smartly written, and you know, there's so many different like layers to the story that all make sense, that don't like just, they aren't just complete chaos to be complete chaos, but they actually like make sense in the grander story. And I think the one last thing I'm going to say about this game is everything is so intentional. Like, it's so intentionally done. I would come across some things in the game where I'd be like, that felt like an error or a mistake or whatever, right? Like, oh, the devs must have made a mistake here. No, actually, that was an intentional choice. And yeah, glad you caught something weird, but that was actually like what we intended. And like, that was just awesome. That was just awesome feeling to be like, oh wait, that was not there on accident. That was there on purpose. You know, so again, I could not recommend this game enough. It is hands down the best detective game that has been made. Better than LA Noire, better than like Mystery Detective, I think is another one that's out there that I've played that I didn't really love that much. Better than, I think Beyond Two Souls is kind of detective-y, but not entirely. And Beyond Two Souls was still really good, but it's not, it doesn't hold a candle to this game, in my opinion. Better than Heavy Rain, better than all that stuff. So honestly, like I would hold, again, if you can look past the anime stuff, it is better than all those games. It really is. That's for me, that's the biggest barrier. If you can look past like all the cringy anime stuff, you can even skip past some things like fast forward and stuff like that. There's implements in the game to avoid that stuff as best as possible. And I'd recommend taking them to a certain extent, because yeah, it is kind of cringy and it's kind of embarrassing. But I understand why they're doing it. It's for that audience, I guess. And it's also just their style. It's what they've been doing forever. So I guess I get it. I gotta respect it at least. Especially somebody who isn't in that culture and who's seeing it from an American lens, where it's like we're raised to be very prude people, and you know, I understand why the case isn't there for that game. But for me, as an American audience member, I'm like, okay, come on, let's behave ourselves a little bit. But anyways, I said it was the end of the video, I think 3 minutes ago, and I'm still talking about this game. Again, shows how much I love it. So if you had a good time. If you want to check out the other videos on this channel, it's a bit of a different one for me. It's a bit more ranty, a bit more just me giving my feelings about a game. Then make sure to check out the other videos on the channel, some other gameplays, things like that. Leave a like if you like this one. I might do more like it because I love games. I really do. And there's so many great games out there that I've played, and I'd love to share my thoughts around and just tell you about the good times and some good game recommendations that you might not know about. So yeah, alrighty. Peace out.